Good evening and welcome. You're watching Center Stage. I'm Rahul Kanwal, and over the next half an hour, we will get you the results of the India Today Group Hansa Research Mood of Delhi Snap Poll. Here is the methodology used in this poll, and then we will come to the responses the voters of Delhi have given. This is a snap poll conducted in all the 7 seats of Delhi. We had 1,019 respondents. These were split equally across the 7 Lok Sabha seats of Delhi. Assembly segments have been picked in each of these seats. The poll was conducted yesterday, that's the 10th of September. So this poll is fresh off the blocks. It's a one-day face-to-face opinion poll. This is not done on the telephone. This requires our pollsters to go out and meet people individually, and that's how this poll has been put together. Let's now put out the first response to the question that our pollsters asked, and that's the most fundamental question at this time. Should there be fresh elections in Delhi? Look very carefully at the response. 47%, almost half the respondents say there should be fresh polls in Delhi. Only 1/3 of the respondents say they don't want fresh polls in Delhi. A clear mandate on this question. 47% would rather see fresh polls in Delhi. The next important question. Should the Lieutenant Governor invite the Bharatiya Janata Party to form the government? And if elections were to be held today, whom would you vote for? 50% say they would vote for the BJP, which is people who voted for them in the Lok Sabha elections. 41% say they will vote for the AAP. Once again, the AAP voting percentage also jumping in comparison with the Lok Sabha election, also in comparison with the previous assembly elections. But the number of people who want to vote for the Congress is down now to only 4%, a complete decimation of the Congress. Should Lieutenant Governor call the BJP to form the next government? 42% say yes, 39% say no. This is within the margin of error. So what that essentially means is the people of Delhi are confused on the issue of whether or not the LG should call the BJP to form a government at this juncture or not. But remember, when seen in conjunction with the other question on whether or not fresh polls should be held, where 47% said yes, that question gives clarity. People are confused on the issue of whether or not the LG at this time should invite the BJP to form the next government or not. Who is the top chief ministerial candidate? Who would people rather see as the next chief minister? Very interesting responses to this question, because the maximum number of people and a leader who's got almost 100% gap between himself and his next challenger is Arvind Kejriwal, leading the pack at 39. Health Minister Harsh Vardhan, who says he's not in the race to be Chief Minister of Delhi any longer, comes in at number 2 with 20%, almost half of Arvind Kejriwal. Kiran Bedi comes in at 20% as well. Remember, she said that she's open to the idea of becoming the Chief Minister, but because of all the infighting and the opposition from the BJP state unit, her name wasn't officially announced despite some senior leaders wanting to see her as Chief Minister. Sheila Dikshit is down to 4% approval ratings, while the likes of Jagdish Mukhi, Satish Upadhyay and all the other worthies who would like to see themselves as the next Chief Minister of Delhi do not even feature amongst the people's ranking. So you've got Arvind Kejriwal leading the pack. You can say that Kiran Bedi and Harsh Vardhan are on the same side of the political ideological divide. If you add up their numbers, then you've got opposition to Kejriwal, but clearly by himself Kejriwal heads and shoulders ahead of the others. Let's now try and dissect the answers to these first set of questions, and then we'll put out the other questions. I want to begin by introducing India Today Group psephologist Dr. Ashok Lahiri. Welcome, sir. With us also on this program is senior Congress leader, former minister in the Sheila Dikshit government, Dr. Kiran Walia. Thank you very much, ma'am, for joining us. We've got GVL Narasimha Rao, psephologist and also national spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party. And we've got Yogendra Yadav representing the Aam Aadmi Party. I want to go across to Dr. Lahiri first. What's the big message the voters who were sampled in this survey are telling our viewers? They want fresh elections, but they're okay with the idea of the LG calling the BJP to form the government. That sounds a bit confusing and contradictory to me.
It is confusing, because what I take from your poll, our poll, is that the people gave a fractured mandate. That is for sure. But they do not like frequent elections. The term of this Delhi Assembly is till December 2018. Now they're trying to somehow reconcile, but they also want fair practices. They don't want any horse trading. So what they're saying, yes, we do not want a government to be formed in any unscrupulous way. But 34% are saying maybe there shouldn't be any fresh elections. It is a confusing message. But 47 is more than 34, so more people believe that there should be fresh elections rather than no fresh elections.
So a substantial majority of people saying they'd rather that there be fresh elections in Delhi. That's the verdict of the people.
Not majority, don't use
47%, so it's close to a majority.
More
in comparison with
yes.
the 34 which say that they don't want fresh elections. GVL Narasimha Rao, people with a big margin are fairly clear. They don't want to see the BJP coming in through the back door. No unscrupulous deals, no horse trading. That message is unambiguous, and they'd much rather see a fresh election. Why is the Delhi BJP so wary of going in for a fresh poll? What are you making of our numbers?
No, first of all, I think the opinion is divided. A 47% by no means is a majority or a big majority. And secondly, people are not in favor of any unethical means being used to form a government, which we are very well aware of. We certainly, we have reiterated time and again that we would like to explore formation of a government, but in a manner that the people of Delhi would approve of. And
that's contradictory, GVL. Your 5 MLAs short.
Without even receiving.
Your 5 MLAs
it is
short.
Not. I think
you cannot form the government through any scrupulous means. It's a statistical, numerical impossibility, GVL. That's the reality.
It is possible. It is possible. No, it is possible. I think we
you have virtual MLAs voting for you. What's the plan? Where will these MLAs show up from? How can you do it? You cannot do it without resorting to defections, without resorting to people cross-voting, without going in for a secret ballot.
Rahul,
it is statistically impossible.
At this point of time, we are waiting to receive an invitation from the LG. We want to understand what the terms of offer are.
When the invitation from the LG arrives. It's not as if the invitation from the LG arrives with 5 extra MLAs. I want to go across to Yogendra Yadav from the Aam Aadmi Party, a renowned cephalogist of his own.
We don't need them.
Now, GVL is very convinced, Dr. Yadav, that without getting any defections from the Aam Aadmi Party or the Congress, they will somehow miraculously be able to form a government in Delhi which will be stable and can govern. But what do you make of the fact that 42%, and you would understand that 42 is a fairly big number, say they're okay with the LG calling the BJP to form the next government? So the majority is not as comprehensive as you would have thought of those who don't want Najib Jung to invite Satish Upadhyay. They're saying, okay, if you want to do it, 42% are all right with the idea. What are you making of this, Dr. Yadav?
First on the numbers in the assembly, clearly GVL and Narasimha Rao knows the mathematics that I don't. I thought 28 and 8 add up to 36. But he clearly has different statistics and numbers, so I must learn something from him, which I'll do after the show. On the point that you've made, you see, survey responses are responses to a question. There is obviously no doubt that given an option, people would want governments to continue. Who would want an election after 1 year? So clearly the first option in the mind of every person is, well, let there be a government formation if it can be done through decent means. If there's a proper, legitimate, responsible, stable government, let it be formed. So if you offer that as an option, which you do in your first question, obviously you get a little more people saying, all right, then we give BJP a chance. The moment you start moving towards reality, the moment you introduce election as an option, then obviously that goes up. Then you introduce something third and you say, what if BJP forms by taking a few MLAs from Aam Aadmi Party and Congress? People say, no, that's not on. So if you had offered a very stark choice, and I would suggest that you do that next time, if you say, on the one hand, there is an option that BJP forms the government by somehow getting some people to switch over from other parties, or we have elections. This is option number 2 or 3. If you give people those two options, which is the only realistic option today, then people clearly, very unambiguously want option number 2, which is elections rather than a government formed through illegitimate means.
So that is your assessment, but that question hasn't been asked and that question hasn't been answered, so we won't know the response to that. As of now, there are two
Rahul, I'm deducing from your own answers, because only 12% people say that they are in favor of
should the LG call the BJP?
Congress gets
42% are okay with that idea. I want to go across also to Dr. Kiran Walia, because Dr. Walia, while the BJP
Rahul,
and the Congress, I'm coming back to you, but I want to ensure that Dr. Kiran Walia gets an equal opportunity as well, please. Stay with me, GVL. Only 4% say they would like to vote for the Congress if polls are held today. Your vote graph in Delhi is sinking through the bottom from almost 50%. You're now down, madam, to only 4 very, very disconcerting figures for the grand old party, ma'am.
So what do you want me to say? Is respond on that, respond to that? We do know that we got only 8 seats, but I'm very sure that we will improve upon our number in case we do go for fresh elections. I think leading, as the speakers here rightly said, that is the leading question, is the lead that you give when you have a survey research methodology. Then we have to, what you're asking is very important. Besides this, it's a small sample that has gone in, but has been taken into account by whoever has conducted this survey. So I would like to make one point, as I made before also, that things have changed, and I wouldn't totally accept this survey report that Congress is decimated. I would also say that Mr. Kejriwal, who took this as a learning ground to experiment with his whatever he was learning about governance, is something that the people of Delhi are very pained about. They had voted for him with a lot of passion. They get a sense of betrayal, and same thing.
But that's what you're suggesting. The reality, ma'am, is that 39% would like to see Arvind Kejriwal as the new Chief Minister of Delhi. So he is still heads and shoulders above everyone else in that race.
I think, Rahul,
but this seems very different from some of the channels that we participated in with university students who totally, completely rejected the idea of trying him again.
That happened at the India Today Mind Rocks as well. When they were very young voters, when we asked them, overwhelmingly they said at that time there were chants of Modi, but they said that there should be no fresh election. But remember, that's not in any way a representative sample demographically. Here is a representative, scientifically selected sample, far more meaningful than an auditorium full of college students voicing their opinion. But Dr.
Rahul, I think
39% backing Kejriwal for CM.
Yeah. So
the thing that I find
if that is the case, then it is very unfortunate, and I think that we would have to really have a larger sample to come to any conclusion. As you rightly said, there were 1,000 or something in one constituency. I don't know what a minuscule percentage that you have.
It's not about the numbers, ma'am. I think we're getting into a very fundamental debate. The number of respondents is not any reflection of the mood on the street. It is about how representative that sample is, which reflects whether or not it's a good comprehensive poll or not. But Dr. Lyde.
See, what gives me confidence...
But coming to your second...
no, ma'am, I just give me a moment, Dr. Lyde.
What gives me confidence about this poll, this poll confirms why the 3 parties are behaving in 3 different ways. For Aam Aadmi Party, in the Lok Sabha elections, it did very badly compared to expectations, except in Punjab. So it wants a redemption of itself, and Delhi polls, Aam Aadmi Party looks at a redemption of itself. BJP, the Congress decimation, they don't want another reaffirmation of the decimation, and the polls to show that Congress is even in a worse position.
Which is why Sheila Dikshit says it's okay if the BJP can form a government.
BJP, on the other hand, though the poll shows 50%, mind you, don't forget Andhra. In 1977, Andhra was the only state which gave about 58% of the votes to Mrs. Gandhi's Congress. 1 year within that, in the assembly polls, its voting percentage came down to less than 40. So, BJP, it's a risky affair. Maybe it will get 50, but why take risks?
You're saying, but why take risk? But Dr. Yogendra Yadav, if you look at polling data from Madhya Pradesh or from Rajasthan, a 9% gap between the BJP and the Aam Aadmi Party is a fairly substantial gap that could indicate that we're not converting this into seats, but if you were to do a broad stroke conversion, a 9% gap, if that is held in actual polling, could carry the BJP to a very comfortable majority. So still, while the Aam Aadmi Party is bouncing back, your numbers are up over your previous Assembly and Lok Sabha results, the BJP is still with a fair gap ahead of the Aam Aadmi Party, giving it some reason for confidence as well, sir.
Rahul, indeed, if the gap is 9%, then that should translate into a comfortable majority. That's the basic law of translation of votes into seats. But as you can notice, your figures are not convincing even the BJP, and I can try and guess why. It's not because the poll is bad. I think the poll is, I looked at the methodology. Sample size is not much of a problem. It's a decent sample size, very nicely spread, very recent poll. But the methodology adopted for selection of sample is such that it would tend to oversample what we call middle classes and undersample people from the lowest strata. So that is, and as we know in Delhi, the vote is so skewed so heavily right now that Aam Aadmi Party's substantial success comes from the low, from the bottom half. And that is why the gap may be much less than 9%, may not exist at all. But the basics are quite clear. Number one, Aam Aadmi Party is bouncing back after the Lok Sabha election. Congress is headed toward decimation, though you may have slightly underestimated the Congress for the same reason that you may have underestimated the Aam Aadmi Party. But Congress is clearly headed downwards. And the simple reason is that third party is punished in the first past the post system. So we are looking at a situation where the situation from Lok Sabha election has changed significantly. It could be kind of a dead heat even at the beginning, and BJP is saying, all right, if it looks this close even at this point, and we know that Arvind Kejriwal is way ahead of any of BJP's leader, BJP leadership.
No, so you're suggesting that it's a dead heat.
They clearly have access to much better surveys than any of us.
The numbers don't show that it's a dead heat. GVL, the numbers show a 9% gap. Now, as a psephologist and someone who tracks Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Rajasthan very closely, in a bipolar fight, a 9% gap translates into a clear majority. If it's as simple as that, why doesn't Amit Shah and Modi, why don't Modi and Amit Shah say, forget this jiggery pokery of trying to come in from the back door. Let's call for fresh polls. The 9% gap, doesn't that, as a psephologist, give you some confidence, GVL?
We think the gap is even more wider. We are 50 plus, and Aam Aadmi Party is far below. But I'm quite impressed with the analysis of numbers of Yogendra. He seems to have a lot of faith in your poll, but when it comes to the gap between the BJP and AAP, he conveniently analyzes it to suit his own party's interests. But let me say this, we certainly believe we are in a far better position today in Delhi than we were in Lok Sabha elections. We will win hands down. 80% of, if this gap were to be converted into seats, it will give 80% of the seats to the BJP. That does not take away the BJP's right to consider formation of a government if the LG were to invite the BJP. We do not want to take, we do not want to take our decisions as AAP would find them convenient. AAP had been imploding. Every day there is somebody who's leaving the Aam Aadmi Party. And it's now become a Kejriwal versus maybe two insiders. And possibly Yogendra is not one of them.
My question,
and every leader in the party is fighting each other.
Gap is not a 50%
I said we have a right.
With a 9% gap is not substantial. But Dr. Kiran Walia, the fact that Sheila Dikshit suggests that it's okay if the BJP forms the government at present, does that suggest that the Congress is waiting for an opportunity to regroup? You hope that if the BJP were to form a government, Kejriwal will then be thrown on the back burner and will give you an opportunity to bounce back. Is that the calculation, ma'am?
No, I think that what Mrs. Dikshit said was what the Supreme Court is also saying, that in a democratic process and in the kind of polity that we are living in, the elected government should be formed, and anybody who can form the government should form the government. And she is of the view that the elections should not be held so frequently or imposed on people, and those who can form the government, be it any party, be it the Aam Aadmi Party, be it the BJP, be it anybody, a process should be resorted to where a government may be formed instead of resorting to elections. So
people that may are confused on the idea of whether or not
are exploring the possibility. She is not saying BJP should form the government.
Should invite the BJP or not, but there's clarity on several other questions, and I want to take them out and play them out for our viewers. Should the Lieutenant Governor invite Arvind Kejriwal to form the government along with the Congress? Let's take a look at the response to that, because people are very clear. 56% say no, the LG shouldn't call up to form the government at this time. Should Kejriwal and Congress come together to stop the BJP from coming to power? Once again, absolute clarity. 71% say no. Not that Kejriwal is trying to do so or Congress will support him, but there is absolute clarity that they don't even want that tried. Let's come to the next question. Was Kejriwal right in quitting the Delhi government after 49 days? 74%, a very clear majority say no, Kejriwal made a big mistake. And I think Kejriwal has said it often enough that he realizes that he made a big mistake, and that is reaffirmed by the response to this question. Now let's come to the sting operation that was carried out by the Aam Aadmi Party against BJP, against a BJP leader. Did people think that the charge was credible? Did they believe that BJP was trying to buy out AAP MLAs? And this is again interesting, because 38% say no. They don't believe the sting operation shown by AAP to be true. Only 30% say yes to that. And Dr. Yogendra Yadav, that would be disconcerting to you and your party, where a larger number of people disbelieve your survey than those who think that what you showed was correct. Dr. Yadav?
It is disconcerting, and I noticed that this is the one question where the number of don't knows are the highest. Don't knows and don't have an opinion is about 25% or more, which you don't have in any other question. So clearly the message has not reached the people. Clearly, and in some ways we may have contributed to it. You see, last time when the stings were done, we came down so heavily on those stings that we may have ended up delegitimizing all stings. So that may have been the case. But having said all that, of course it's disconcerting. On the last one, because I didn't get a chance to say something on that, on what Mr. J.L. Narasimha Rao was saying, I can't quite see his face, but you can. Is he convinced by what he's saying? They have more than 50% vote share. Aam Aadmi Party is imploding. They would get 80% seats. Why don't they want elections? I mean, I'm absolutely astonished. Please, for heaven's sake, any rational actor would do that. Is he really convinced by
it's a right.
It is a right.
It's a call that the BJP will take. And it's a call. No, because Aam Aadmi Party is scared of implosion, we do not want to take away our own rights. It's a call that the BJP will take at an appropriate time.
I want to come, because we're running out of time on this broadcast. I want to come to the next question. I think that is important for GVL and his party to understand and acknowledge. Should BJP try to get AAP and Congress MLAs to switch sides? Now, this is a very crucial question, because 67% say no. Only 12% are prepared to support the idea that there could be defections, cross-voting in a secret ballot. 67% say no. They don't want BJP to try and get AAP and Congress MLAs to switch sides. Do you believe cash changes hands when an MLA switches sides? Once again, ye janta sab janti hai, because 69% say yes. Each time an MLA switches sides, he is doing so because of some inducement. Only 16% say no. So the message in that response, Dr. Lahiri, is very clear. Do what you want. Don't try and sneak in by unscrupulous means. The people of Delhi will not accept that. They're not okay with that.
I think there's a sign of maturing democracy. You as a journalist, Rahul, will remember that in the late 19th century and early 20th century, even in the United States, there were political machines. Money used to change hands, but we have come a long way. So even in India, I think people are wanting honesty. People are saying, don't do this.
GVL, do you understand that message? You're 5 MLAs short. People don't want you to get MLAs to defect or cross vote. You don't have the numbers. That's the reality.
Rahul, I think you've raised this question and I've answered it more than once. And we have made it clear, we will not encourage, we will not invite we will not make any attempt to get people to cross over. And people of the sting, the manner in which people of Delhi have responded to the sting operation and the allegations and claims shows that people have faith in the BJP. But then we have had history of minority governments in this country, and for all of you, for you and particularly Yogendra, to pretend that there has not been such an event in the past, I think would be really doing a lot of disservice to the viewers of the program. We have had many minority governments in the past.
Quick final question to Yogendra Yadav. The one thing that this poll shows is, while Kejriwal has a big lead over any challenger from the BJP, if Kiran Bedi, who's not even an official challenger, were to be made a challenger, it could change the equation in the minds of the voters of Delhi. If BJP can somehow convince local leaders to appoint her, that could be a game changer in a Kejriwal versus Kiran Bedi square off, Dr. Yadav. Would that be disconcerting to you, the possibility that Kiran Bedi could take on Kejriwal?
But I thought your poll has already answered it. Kejriwal is near 40, Kiran Bedi is near 20.
But she hasn't yet even been officially appointed. She hasn't been given that post. Despite that, she's ahead of real candidates. Like a Jagdish Mukhi or a Satish Upadhyay. They don't feature. Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, of course, Kiran Bedi is more popular than Jagdish Mukhi and others that BJP has put together. And clearly, Kiran Bedi's popularity draws something from the popularity of the anti-corruption movement, which she has inherited. Once it comes into polls, we would see a different situation. Your poll has already answered that question. She is 20%, he is 40%. But more importantly, the point that G.V.L. Narasimha was making, that I'm pretending as if the country has had no minority government. Where is he drawing it from? Aam Aadmi Party government was a minority government, so why do I not know it? The only point we are making is that the established convention in this country,
without MLAs we can form a government.
A minority party, when you invite a minority party to form a government, you ask for additional letters of support which ensure majority before you even swear them in. And that is what we are objecting to. The basic point, the bottom line is, BJP doesn't have the numbers, they don't have public support. Whatever Mr. Narasimha Rao says here, they don't have the courage to go and face elections.
Okay, we're out of time on this broadcast.
What they have is central government, and that's what they're trying to use.
The 50 to 41, that's the gap the poll indicates. Clearly, that's not convincing the BJP just yet, because regardless of what G.V.L. Narasimha Rao and any other BJP leader might say, if they felt confident that they would win at this time with anything close to a comprehensive majority, they would have gone out and asked for polls. They don't want to take that risk because they want to deny oxygen supply to the Aam Aadmi Party in the hope that the party will implode, leaders will break away, and that people will forget about the phenomena called Kejriwal. And that suits the Congress as well, which is why Sheila Dikshit says it's okay if they can form the government, because they too are hoping another election, if it's delayed, will give them an opportunity to rebound and regroup. Clearly, lots of games being played in the political space, and I hope that this poll answers some of the key questions and puts them in perspective for our viewers. Dr. Ashok Lahiri, Dr. Kiran Walia, Yogendra Yadav and G.V.L. Narasimha Rao for joining us on Center Stage tonight on the special Mood of Delhi opinion poll. Thank you very much. People confused about whether it's okay for the Lieutenant Governor to invite the BJP, but they're absolutely clear that you cannot win the vote by trying to buy out AAP or Congress MLAs, which essentially means that the BJP can't form the government at present because they're 5 MLAs short. Now, the invitation from the LG doesn't come with free MLAs, which essentially boxes the BJP into a corner.